Hello, everyone. This is our last docu-talk for this edition of DocuFest. It's one about a very important duo in a filmmaking process, which is the editor-director duo. And we called this talk a match made in heaven because I know these wonderful filmmakers, and I know that they've been collaborating on different projects together, and I feel like I see them as one pair every time, and I would like for them to tell us more about that, and really so we can delve deeper into how they work together. I'm going to introduce them and just a couple of the films that they work on together. So you have Kumyana Novakova and Yelena Maksimovic. Kumyana is the director, Yelena is an editor, and they've worked together on Disturbed Earth and Silence of Reason, and maybe I'm missing another project, but yeah. The two feature films, and Silence of Reason is, of course, at the festival this year. And then we have Ilir Hassanai and Enis Sarachi. Ilir is a director, Enis is an editor, and they work together on two films. As I was looking above, I could see myself underneath, and Workers' Wings, that's also presented at the festival this year. So thank you very much for all of you to be here. What do you love about Enis as an editor?
Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks for coming for this talk. I think maybe when I try to think of the first how we met or something, we got a bit on the wrong foot, or we thought a bit about smaller things. I don't remember exactly what, is this scene here or we should cut it there, and I remember that Enis had the side of being persistent on why we shouldn't do this or why we should do this, but he has a very in a sense very warm way, and also a logical way, like it's not he doesn't try to say we should do this because I feel it should be like this, but he tries to translate it for me, in a sense. He always tries to go back of what I told him or what the film is about, and then he explains it in a way where I have to go back and think about what he said, and then very often he's right, like he has a good argument, and so I think maybe I love it and I hate it in a way, but I think this makes him a very special collaborator that I like to work with.
And for you, Kumyana, with Yelena?
Well, we are friends, and we started working after becoming friends, and for me this is crucial. For me personally, it's really important to be a little bit in love with the people that I work with in the most beautiful way. And this makes me excited and always trying to get to the kind of best version of myself. But then also it creates a feeling of safety and trust, which has nothing to do with work in kind of an automatic sense of it, but more in a life meaning sense of it. And then, of course, if we discuss really about approaches to cinema and film, Maxa is very, very open. Probably it's one of the most open persons I know in cinema, and for me this is something which is really important, because I think that we do not, especially here in the region, we do not have the luxury to do films just for the sake of doing films. Every time I at least have to have a really good reason to do a film. And working with a person who is in this, who believes in this philosophy and in this role of cinema, and who is completely working against the obvious and against who is free, makes the process always a journey ending up with some kind of a small discovery in the nice sense of the term.
Actually, when you were talking about this kind of safety, but at the same time excitement of wanting to work with your editor, let's say on a new project, I'm wondering, like, when does it start for you in the projects that you've been involved with? Like, when do you start talking about it, or when do you feel like even at the beginning of an idea you're like, I have to talk to Maxa? Or maybe Maxa, you can address it like more when Kumiana comes to you with the film ideas.
It was very interesting for me, for example, regarding Silence of Reason. Kumiana approached me with one photo, which is like the last photo in the film, and she was like, she just sent me a photo and was like, you see, we have a film. And I was like, okay. So I really appreciate her being so sensitive about details and so emotional and so curious about life. And that photo contained like a woman standing on a window, observing us and observing like the whole context in front of her, and I immediately knew that it's going to be like really interesting as a starting point, and for this, I mean, very, very serious film that we made.
And for you, maybe Anis, because I know with Workers' Wings you were very involved from the beginning of the process. If you could talk more to that.
Yeah, sure. In general, I don't like to be involved from very beginning, because if something goes wrong, then I don't have no one to judge. So that's not good thing for me as an editor. But with Ilir, it was a little bit different. From very beginning, when he told me about this idea and the story, I really liked this film, and if he wants me to be part of this film, even from very beginning, then always I'm very open, because not every director is the same. So I feel the editors in general should adapt to directors, and if I can help him, then yes, and I will be very honest from very beginning. And I remember at the beginning Ilir filmed something. It was because they filmed in analog, and it was the first roll, and I see 6 minutes, and I don't see nothing that he told me that this film is about. It felt completely different film, and I'm very, very, very direct to him. I said, okay, whatever you told me about your idea and everything, I think it's not there. I feel I have to be very honest with you, and I know it's very sensitive for a director to feel like that, but I have to be very honest if I want to help the director and to make a good film. And I remember Ilir, that's something that I really like about him, because he gives me this freedom that I can fully express myself, really, and that's very important for the editor. When I have this space, I will do my best to help him to achieve his goal, and he did that, and I was very brutal, which maybe it's not very kind, but because he's very sensitive, and I like that. But in the next act, he reflected, and I remember in a film, because he was trying to save film, because it cost a lot of money, and every shot is 2 seconds, and that's not good enough for the editing. And I said, please, maybe just film one shot, but that make sure that won't be long enough, because if it's only 2 seconds, 3 seconds, that's not enough. And I think that what's good about it, and it was a kind of new experience for me, because usually I don't do that, because I feel I try to be very helpful, in the sense that if I know less about the content and everything, then I can judge more in proper way when they give me the footage. So, but in this case it was different, and I think it worked well.
How did it feel, Ilir, for you, and how do you manage also this relationship where it's obviously very honest? And knowing Anis and having worked also myself a bit with Anis, I know that he lives the project with you, really.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, as director, why you do it is you want to learn. Like I really like to learn from the characters. I like to learn from my cameraman. I like to learn from Ennis, and in general, you see it as this process, and the film is the conclusion about it. I mean, it's of course it hurts. I mean, it's we're humans, and sometimes like hearing honest things, it can hurt. But I think it's just what is good is that I try to go back to that. Actually, we clash about things because we care. It's not that you wouldn't clash if you don't care. So if Ennis tells me these things, it's because he cares and he believes. And so I then also go back and try to take this as something that I can grow from it. Because I worked with a painter. Like he's not really a DP. Like he didn't do this kind of work before. He worked on like he was a photographer. And then he decided to be a painter. Very talented one, but it was for him different. And what I enjoyed a lot was that we just had a lot of conversations. We would talk about frames, we would talk about colors. For example, I never talked about colors before. And so for me, it was also like this experience to learn. And when, like we did all these shots, and when you get the shot, you're like a child, wow, it looks amazing. And like I couldn't sleep because I sent the roll when it finally arrived. You're like, wow, this looks insane. And then Ennis came and destroyed me completely. Like, I was here, and then he was like realities.
I'm curious to know, actually, if we a bit go deeper into, for example, let's say with Silence of Reason, like once you were in the editing room, editing for a while, when did you sense you were coming close to what you needed the film to be? Like, when was this for you, and when did you know that you were reaching that space, and how?
We can open a bit about Silence of Reason, although I think Silence of Reason is kind of a very different work because it is a work that was entirely made during the editing process. First, it's an archive-only work, and then regarding the process of searching of the, it was an extremely fluid process because right from the beginning we had a very strong experience with the material, in the sense that after the first, we worked first for, let's say, a week and a half only talking and looking through the material, which was a lot of text, and then a bit of just a very small section of the archive was audiovisual and audio, and then a lot of photos. So this first period of discussing, we had a very strong experience, and somehow, even though we didn't arrive to the exact audiovisual approach, we were feeling, both of us, very, very, very close to the material.
And for you, Ilir and Ennis, like, how do you organize your editing sessions on the two films that you worked on?
Yeah, I thought what you said. I'm actually quite happy because Ennis does this planning. I arrive, and for me it's you know, even to think of the approach, how to come to this finished film, it's complex. It's I don't know how to even, you know, break it down. But Ennis comes then, and he said, okay, we're here. Let's maybe look at the footage and see what we like. And this is really, you know, constructive to go from a start to another. And we worked on 2 films, and these 2 films are really different. The first film that we collaborated is the one with the longest title I ever had, and it's yeah, it's really it's really long, and we had even a discussion if it should be a long title, and he said yes, it should. It's good. So no, there it was, because it was like 5 storylines. And it's a film about queer people in Kosovo. And the really hard part was to intertwine it together and to like sort of, when you have so many characters and so many storylines, it's very important that you stick to one story and that you don't mix people up. Then we did it in the form that it's one character at a time, you know, one story at a time. And I think it's really like this this process of finding the language of the film while trying and work together. And I think the second film, it was much more easy to collaborate with, because we already, you know, like passed this time together. We became friends. Ennis, for example, asks me sometimes for feedback for other films that he works. I come sometimes and ask for feedback when I work on other things. So it became really this collaboration that you can ask a good friend of the opinion and be very professional about it. And I think this was, in the last film, we were so much faster, and we didn't fall into the traps that we fell maybe in the first film.
Sorry, I just want to correct you. And I'm the editor. I must do that. No, the thing is, I wouldn't call that a trap. That it's a process, and I think it's very important the way how you trust from the director. And sometimes this, what you just said about that at the beginning I didn't believe that puzzle structure is going to work for the film, but anyway we tried, because sometimes the director must see if he or she has a vision. Sometimes it's very important to see that it's not working, and that it is a process in the editing room. So it's not trap, and thanks to that, then I think we create a great relationship, and you trust me, I trust you, and everything it became easier. So yeah.
And just to add also one thing to this, and I think it's amazing when you are working with a person with whom you actually feel comfortable when something is not working.
I'm going to open up for our audience to ask questions to our panelists.
Could you maybe talk about how you stay fresh to the material? Like, I was just watching Cumiana's film again, and the rhythm of the film is really impressive, and like silences and this feeling of like, are you creating too much space before you continue with the narrative again, or like how long a scene is and things like this. And I noticed that when I see a film in editing, I always have that first version I saw in mind, watching every next cut. So I wonder how you do it in the editing process, especially when it's like this kind of work.
I really think that the breaks, for example, Cumiana mentioned, so the breaks between like editing blocks, let's call it like that, are very important. But also what is like the most important for me is like rewatching things again and again. So I work like first I make like a rough structure of the film. I never work on details first. I always work on like a structure, and then like I watch it, correct things, watch it again, correct things, and we always watch, rewatch until the point that we feel that's it. And it's like, for me, it always worked like that. Even though it's like it's a lot of work, and it's like a pain in the ass to watch things again and again, especially when you don't have enough time, maybe, or whatever. But then it's better like to take one day off and go to swim, and then come back and watch it again. So I work like that.
I try, once I have a rough cut or something like that, I try to not watch it. I try to watch less as it possible. So probably it's something different, but I try to be very fresh. And because once, for me, when I watch several times, and I just feel things are working just by watching many times, or it could be the opposite, that they're not working. What works for me well is the director. When the director comes, I insist him to sit in my seat, and I'm a back, and I can observe through him, and I think more what he thinks and what he feels about my decisions, and that very, very, very useful. And of course also the feedback and some breaks sometimes, and something that really that works for me. I try to watch it from different angle. For example, one of the films that I worked, it was Displaced. It was COVID time, and I was in my room, and I had a projector that I projected on the seal, and I was observing like this, and it felt different experience, because by sitting in the same place for several times, you will know your decision, your cuts, and all this stuff. So for me, that works real well when I change the angle, and of course, breaks always works. But for me, breaks works after 5 months or something, which is not good sometimes. Yeah.
I'm really convinced that at one point you feel like completely like blank, because you watch it so many times that at one point you're completely fresh again. So something happens to you. I really believe that. I mean, that's how Chantal Akerman worked, for example, and she was right for me. I mean, it's like, it's difficult, and sometimes you're crazy and you hate that film at some point, but somehow, and you always see different things. I mean, you see certain details which you didn't notice and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Because you mentioned the rhythm, and I think that's very interesting about the editors. I feel like that is very pure intuition. I feel it's not something that you have some techniques to be fresh or something like that. It's the temperament of the editor. So I think, yeah, so.
If I can add something, I also think that I agree totally with Maxa, because I think that there is something about the physicality of going through the work again and again and again, in the sense of being totally physically reliving the work so many times that the rhythm becomes routine in a way, and it starts showing out where the kind of falls and where the peaks are, and every time you arrive to a better tune, and it works. I mean, it is basically the methodology of the rehearsal, no? And for example, Chantal Akerman, but also it's the way Pedro Costa worked with non-actors. He repeated every shot so many times that the actors forget about the instructions, and it becomes pure mechanics. Because sometimes we really mystify the process, and maybe the entrance is in pure mechanization of it and not mystification.
I think I'm also a bit more connected with Ennis in the way of rhythm. When I also look something, I have a sense of when should it end, or when does your interest span finishes, or when you know, like when did you see enough of a shot? And I guess it's really like more of this like finding a way of how these different frames and different shots correlate with one another, and it's very interesting. I also have sort of, I never, like I don't understand music. I'm really unmusical. My whole family were really, like, I'm really bad, but somehow I can sense that there is a certain rhythm or something inside of me where I see a rhythm in the material, and I think I also, you know, like try to watch it in that sense, that is it like down here, does it make me to say actually this needs to be really short or this needs to be longer?
Yeah, but just to add one thing, it's also so maybe interesting because it happened to me, for example, that certain director, for example, feels that certain shot should be like much longer than I feel, for example, and then I let it. I mean, I let it like that. And sometimes it happened to me that I realized after like a lot of watching that he or she was like right regarding that. So something new happened to me. I mean, I realized that I couldn't feel the right thing at the moment.
Okay, so I'm going to close then and finish, and I just wanted to thank all of our panelists, and I hope you continue making films together, because I love the films that you make, and I think what we've seen here today is really beautiful.